I've been losing weight for the past 16 weeks while also training very hard. And this week I had my first deload week during that entire time, while also eating at maintenance calories. Call it a sort of diet break. I'm gonna explain my thoughts and experiences about it in this video. I haven't scripted this, I don't even have any talking points written down like I normally do. These are gonna be my raw, unfiltered thoughts about it. First of all, was the deload necessary? Was it useful? This one is easy. Definitely yes. My body feels a lot better, my joints don't ache anymore, and even mentally I am ready to train hard again. So yes, the deload week was very useful. But secondly, was the diet break, eating at maintenance calories, useful? I would say that I didn't need to do that, but it was still useful because of what I learned from it. The first couple of days, Monday and Tuesday, I felt very psychologically relieved that I don't have to restrict myself so goddamn much and I can eat kinda whatever I want. But then afterwards, I started feeling like I could easily keep eating at a deficit, making progress and seeing results. Why am I eating so goddamn much? But I still kept doing it because it was my deload week and the point was to recover. Also, I was spending the weekend on a cabin with my friends, so not restricting my eating was definitely a benefit there. And lastly, I also kept doing it for science, just to see how eating at maintenance affects me afterwards. My energy levels, my motivation to train, and my motivation to keep losing weight. For example, the psychological relief or social freedom of not having to restrict your eating can be quite enormous. But I wouldn't do this for 1 week at a time. I would do it for a day or two here and there. For example, 1 day every week. Secondly, when we're talking about long-term success, I don't think eating at maintenance can ever really be a bad idea. Because whenever you're doing that, you're practicing certain habits and behaviors that you can later take away with you, after your weight loss for example, to make sure the weight doesn't come back, so that the weight loss is actually maintained. Thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, after eating at maintenance for an entire week, and often really not even wanting to do that, I would have rather wanted to eat at a deficit many of the days. I am now hugely motivated to keep losing fat, eating at a deficit and making progress. Additionally, after eating multiple huge portions of delicious food and often feeling kinda sick afterwards, I realized that it's not that special. This is something to take away with me as I keep losing weight, and if I ever start feeling really cravey towards meals like that, I can remind myself that it's not that amazing. I can easily do with less food and actually feel better afterwards. Hey guys, it's me from the future, editing this video, and I realized that it's worth pointing out that this phenomenon can really go both ways. Some people are doing just fine with their diet, they're in the groove, they have their routine set up and they're losing weight, and then out of nowhere they decide to have a diet break to feel better or to boost their metabolism. And what happens instead is that they completely fall off the wagon. They drop the ball, they break their routine, they realize how wonderful it is to eat a lot again, and the diet is basically over. So it's important to be conscious of whether or not you're a person like this, and if you are, then perhaps you've already dieted for too long and it's time to take a break, or perhaps you have some unresolved issues with your relationship with food. But this was an important point I thought was well worth making. One additional point that I definitely want to make is that it's now Thursday of the next week, after the video you're watching right now. And this week my appetite has definitely been way lower than normal, and my motivation to be active has been way higher than normal. Also, when I look back at certain points of this cut where I've started to get a little bit sick of it, and I've eaten more calories for a few days, sometimes even an entire week, while still being at a deficit of course, I've noticed that the next week virtually always feels a lot easier. My appetite is lower and my activity is higher. I don't know if it's physiological or psychological or social, probably a combination of all of them, but there is definitely something to these diet breaks. Looking back at all the cuts I've done in the past, I'm only starting to realize this now. Just goes to show that even after 5+ years of doing this, you still learn something new every now and then. Or at least get some new ideas on what really might be going on. So, should you take a diet break or not? On one hand, you might temporarily boost your metabolism by making yourself want to be more active, by taking in more calories and having more energy. Note that this doesn't work for every person. You will likely also reduce your hunger and cravings for a time, and you'll probably feel better physically, psychologically, and socially by having more energy and not having to restrict yourself as much. On the other hand, taking a diet break will extend the duration of your diet. But this might not be a bad thing, because if you take diet breaks, you will be eating at maintenance, and like I mentioned earlier, practicing weight maintenance is always a good thing for the long term, because it's a skill you're gonna need eventually anyway. If I had to pick a side, I would lean towards taking diet breaks. Whether it's 1 day every week, 1 week every month, or 3 months of a diet break after 3 months of cutting. Most people fail at weight loss because they try to lose too much weight too fast, never learning to build any sustainable habits, and taking diet breaks counters that. It teaches you to play the long game. Ultimately though, you should try various different things and see what works best for you. Whatever you can adhere to is the one you should go with. This week my waist and legs, aka the places where I store the most fat, were both down 1 centimeter again. And like I said, I was eating at maintenance calories this week, but I still lost 0.7 kilos of weight. However, this is the result of the previous couple weeks, not this week. Weight loss always happens with some degree of delay. Not that much visual change compared to the previous few weeks, but definitely a difference compared to the first one. And finally, my steps were about 13,000 per day this week, just a little bit less than normally. Anyway, thanks for watching this week's video. I'll see you again next week.